Okay, this is going to be a much more in-depth version and walkthrough of my submission for the coding competition. I hope you end up watching it. I'll go through what actually I ended up doing to make this all work. So the first thing I'll go through is the AI, because that's really what the flashy part of this project is, I would say. So it's AI, not machine learning. It's just some simple stuff, but I'll go through how it works. So I have this AI manager, which just has a map of an object and that object's behavior. So I can set a behavior to an object, and I can take that object out of the map. And I also have the update. When I call this update, it just goes through the map, the behavior map with the objects, and calls their individual update methods, so that I know that I'm calling the right one. So I'll show you. The simplest one is the seek. It just goes right for the player. That's it. Target. So it has the target and an agent, and this is its update method. So every time update is called, which is every frame, checks, makes sure they're not null, gets the desired velocity by just getting the 3D position, XYZ position of both, and subtracting just to get the distance. And then this GLM has a handy distance feature to measure actually the distance between the 2 points, which is handy. Then you have to write out the whole equation, which I've actually done in other parts of this project. This is just easy to use. And then so normalize the velocity we want to go. So that just is a handy little feature. It puts the vec3, and it makes it between 0 and 1. So it's not like, it just normalizes it 0 and 1. It's a lot easier to use when you're using it for the equations. And then I said how fast I want to go. That's the max velocity. And once they get into 5 units, they're going to slow down. I just did this mostly for debugging purposes, so that they wouldn't just be running into me all the time, and I could keep testing it and everything, make sure everything is working. So I check if the distance is less than the slowing radius, and then slow them down. So I'll just divide it by that. Otherwise, I just go with max velocity. So then calculate the steering force. So I take the desired velocity and get the objects that's already, like the enemy object that is seeking me, get its current velocity, and subtract that off. So I set the velocity to that, and then times 0.3, so it just like doesn't snap right there. It kind of like has a little bit of a gradual turn to it. And then I have this check here for if the length of a velocity is greater than the max velocity, then I normalize it and set it to the current velocity times the max velocity. So that's pretty much it for the seek stuff. It's a pretty simple one. The more complicated version of it is the pursue. I'll show you the update method for that. Basically, it's doing the same thing, but it's going to, here it's going to guess where the player is going to be in this line too. So I just multiply this into the equation so that it knows, okay, in this many frames it's going to be, I don't know, 5 units ahead. So I'm going to go to 5 units ahead, and every frame is measuring that, so it's not going to get behind or anything like that. So I also have this evade behavior, and so it is partnered up kind of with the pursue objects. So when I shoot at pursue objects, they'll all of a sudden turn into the evade behavior, and this is just, it gets the position of the bullet that I'm shooting and tries to dodge it. So it's just the opposite basically of the pursue, and yeah, I just actually I just like times it by -1 and set it to make sure that the target is the bullet that I'm shooting. And so that's a few of the AI behaviors. Wonder is super simple too, but I'll go through my actual game engine. I guess I should say I had this about half built when the coding competition started, so I probably can't take credit for the whole thing being part of this competition, but the majority of this I built during the competition time. So these are the controls. I've got a bit of spaghetti code going on. It's just been so much stuff to put together. Mediator stuff I was trying to design patterns that I wanted to put in there. The abstract factory I actually use that a lot. So those are all the controls there, and then here's where we start it. So I have model loader in my factory, in the window. This is all just stuff to make the window actually appear and stuff to actually go on it. So then I have the debug renderer, and I don't end up using it very much. It's a little bit buggy. So I just got Async set up on this, but I'm actually not using it for this project. I have a couple models that I've loaded in there, but I actually don't render them to the screen or anything. Async's just a little tricky to use, and I'm not really used to it yet, so I've just been using my custom model loader that I made. This model loader. C model loader. So I can go into here, and I'll show you. I'm just in the airport. People keep walking. Sorry about that. Just janitor drove by on like a big Zamboni in the airport, traveling home tonight, and thought I would get some work done. Anyway, this is my model loader. So this file name and the number of vertices and the number of triangles. It does a bunch of stuff. I did this before the competition though, so that's probably not super important to go through. It does a ton of stuff though. So I load in the meshes with that. And then, these are the shaders that I'm using. I have a vertex shader and a fragment shader. I've done a bit of work on those recently, mostly not for this though. So it's just basic stuff like drawing stuff to the screen, making sure that the lighting works properly and all that kind of stuff. Like my skybox and everything like that. I can probably show you a little bit more once I'm learning the demo of it. And so then I take my meshes and I have to put them into this VAL manager. And so it's just a step in between to tie it into the GPU on the computer. And so it does that. I had this built before, so I don't really need to go into that. Texture stuff I had built before, so I just add the texture bitmaps in, and I need the texture coordinates on the models. Okay, Zamboni is just coming back through. I'll be right back. So like I was saying, I have textures like Max Ring texture and Moon and Mars, and there's a bunch of other ones that I'm not using. And then my Skybox textures, which is just space themed. And then I actually make my objects. So this is where I use my factory to either create a mesh object, which is something like that would go into my environment objects, like planets in the background, or if it was a different game like the floor, or like the ground, or stuff like that. And then so if I need something like this bullet, my bullet that I shoot is a sphere object, call it bullet, set the position and the rotation. This is using a vec3, but it's actually, you can see it's quaternion that I use. I just have it so that if I pass in a vec3, then, actually I don't even think I need to do that. I'm pretty sure GLM has an automatic conversion for making quaternions from vec3s. But anyway, I set the scale. Don't need the debug color anymore because I have the texture ratio, because I can have more than one texture on it. And then the transparency, they're all going to be at 1. I don't have any windows or anything. Set the velocity to nothing and the acceleration to nothing. In this project I'm mostly just using velocity. One second, I'm going back. Okay, yeah, so then I can set visible and wireframe stuff for debugging and and stuff like that. So I make my bullet, my X-Wing guy, Moon, Mars, 9 enemies, and so in here I create the object, and then I did this for like, as I was adding behaviors, I can just keep on adding more easily. So do a random number between the default amount and number of behaviors I have. So between 1 and 5. I was using floats for this, but that's why I have this weird setup, because floats, you can't do like equals equals on, or equals equals equals, like JavaScript. But anyway, I have number 1 as the default, and then 5 behaviors, but there's actually only 4, as you can see, and I have this weird setup because of using floats, and then I just change it to 10. And so, anyway, if it's above 1, seek. If it's above 2, pursue. If it's above 3, approach. If it's above 4, wander. And then I make sure I get the X-Wing mesh, and then set a friendly name so that I can search for it and look it up later, which is just enemy plus whatever number we're on. So up to 8, 0 to 8. And then I set the friendly name to look it up. Set the position, so I set it to a random location at the top of the screen, though you can't see it. Everything is set to 10 on the Y because it is actually 3D, but everything is just on 10, so that it's pretty much just a 2D game. The rotation I don't set right away, and the scale is just 1 because the textures don't work very well unless if you mess with the scale. They just totally don't work really. And then so if it is seek, I look it up. I set the behavior up here, and then I get the behavior down here. If it's a seek behavior, then I make a new seek behavior and add them both to the AI manager, like I showed earlier. And then I set the color. I just use red textures, like different textures for those. So it's really easy to tell. So I do the same with pursue, approach, and wander. And with wander, I need to give it a random number. So I just make sure it's within the playable area. And then texture ratio, transparency, all the regular stuff I add. And then I add it to my vector, or enemy objects. Do that 9 times, and then I got a skybox, which is just pretty easy to make it so it doesn't get affected by the physics. 0, inverse mass, debug sphere and debug cube. Debug cube I was using for axis aligned bounding boxes for a different project to split it up because I was using a huge map and I couldn't test for collisions on the whole thing at the same time, so I had to split it up. Make sure I have my depth buffer and my depth test on, and then make my physics object and my light object, and put a couple lights in, push them onto the light vector. There's a few variables I should probably just get rid of, except for the little pass filter and that for the delta time. Frame buffer object is used for having like a screen within a screen. I'm not using it in this project, so like a TV screen, like a security camera or something is what I was using it for on a different project. And then I actually start my infinite loop for each frame. So each frame, I use a quaternion to rotate the moon and Mars. So this seems to be pretty good. I just do them in opposite directions. Set the frame buffer to this one. This is for doing the different buffers, clear it, and then I'm going to set it after. So I do it with pass numbers on the shader. It's a bit complicated, so I'm not going to really get into it. It's not really part of the project. This is just debugging. I set the title to position. And then some light stuff. The shader is really weird, so I had to do this weird loop where I'm like putting strings together and everything, so I didn't have to write it out a bunch of times. shader stuff is really annoying to use. Then, well, I guess I should go into it a little bit. So you need to get the uniform location of the variable in the shader, so the vertex shader. So this uniform map model, to like access that, I need to go and do get uniform location, shader program ID, and then I'm like setting the exact one that I'm looking for here. So the lights, whatever that number is. So setting the fragment shape. Yeah, so number of lights 2, and so the lights, and then 2, number of lights. So it just makes an array. Yeah, so it really appears as that for each number. And so then in here I have to look up each number. So I just have 2 right now, and I have to make sure they match. So I have to like edit the shader every time. And so anyway, that's how I do it. Then I go through and make sure I draw my objects in the scene. So if it's the skybox, I do a special thing, or this is if it's not the skybox, I guess. So if it's anything else, then I do some checks and see if it's just a regular thing that I'm doing all this. And then just skybox, I do something else, and then I calculate the world matrix. So this is the physics of it. So I make sure I take this matrix and apply the transform, like the translation transform, which is the location, like moving it, and the rotation and scale. And then I return the matrix back to the draw call, and then I pass it all the stuff that I need into the shader, like the map model, the color, the diffuse color, then do not light if it's debug stuff, and then all that. Make sure it has like the depth test and all that. So I do that for all the objects on every frame, so that I'm not losing track of where they are. So I have the environment objects, medium objects, and then the enemy objects is where it gets a little bit complicated. So I have this weird math with using the normalizing the vectors and everything to make them look at the player. And then if the enemy is a seek enemy, I get the forward direction. So this is for if I'm looking at the seek players, they will turn into flee. If the dot product angle is greater than 99, so I had like a really small angle, but it was working, but then I put rotations on the player and I can't get math to work on that one. So I'll just skip over that. Then I set them back to flee when I'm not looking at them. Or if they are flee, I set them back to seek. And set them to flee here, set them back to seek, and the color is always blue if it's trying to move away from something. So it's pursue, and the bullet distance is less than 30. So it's just basically if there's a bullet nearby, then it's going to turn blue and run away from the bullet. So I put the bullet in the evade with that object. And so I do that, and then if it's already in evade, and then the distance is greater than 30, so my bullet's gone, then it goes back to pursuing me and turns purple. Then I do the physics update for delta time. The AI update. It just goes through all the AI objects and updates it. And then the physics update, which just takes the velocity and the acceleration and moves in relative direction. So it just takes, I'll just go to game object, quickly show it. Takes a vec4, a forward direction object, so the relative direction in one, and then put it in matrix, just a blank matrix, and then I take the rotation and add it into the matrix, and then take the forward and add it into the matrix as well, or multiply it into the matrix. You have to multiply the 4x4 matrices, and then I set the position for the position plus forward in weld space. That's about it for move in relative direction, and then I have a few other things, so like slowing the object down so that it doesn't just keep going. And then I slow down a little extra for this object. And then I test for the collisions. So I just check, do a basic distance check. 4.2 seemed to be the right distance that I would catch it every time. For the bullets hitting the enemies. And then I spawn 3 little asteroids as an explosion object, and then set them to random vectors so they go off into random directions in their random scale. And then so after that I break because we're done searching for that collision, for that object. It's not going to do anything else because I destroy it. I also have to. This is if I crash into them. Yeah. So it just exits the. I just exit the window, so it doesn't have to do anything. But for this one, I have to brake because I'm erasing it from the vector. And if it keeps going through the loop, it's going to go over the end of the vector and then get a memory access error. So this is the approach ones. I had a different thing in there for a while. Take it out, and some testing stuff for these ones. For the temp bullet, and it's just a testing thing. And then the wander, I just make a new wander and set it to the same object at a different location. And then so if the vector gets down to 0, like less than 7, then I make a new object. Like if I shoot one, I make a new one. I guess those numbers don't line up. That should be 9. But yeah. As soon as I kill some, I make more to replace them, and it's just never ending. And then these are for figuring out the attenuation for the lighting. Saving all my stuff to an XML file. And this is all frame buffer stuff for doing multiple screens at the same time. And that's about it for my project. So a lot of this I did. It's a lot of really technical and quite a bit of math and algorithms on here, design patterns. So not all of it was done within the time limit, but 3/4 of it was. And so I hope you liked it. I guess I should do a little demo of it quickly. The screen here. Quaternions really make the rotation much better. And then I do it forward and backwards in world space. The rotation is much smoother and make it a lot better. Yeah, it's dodging my bullets. Oh, that's weird. There we go. Yeah, collisions are, see they're running away and going at the same time. Oh, there we go, they're going away, I think, yeah. And then come and get me. Those white ones just get close enough. The green ones just get a random one. I thought the moon and Mars looked kind of cool. And so they're all looking at me, unless I get behind them. So that's about it. Thanks for watching.